All right. Well, it is straight up at 6 o'clock. So we want to wish everyone a great evening and welcome you all in. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. This is our first ever evening event. So we're trying something new, and hopefully we'll be able to reach some folks that maybe were not able to join us for other events during the day. So I'm going to start out with a little PowerPoint that shows us the agenda for today. All right. So this is our event with Jen Schlegel. I'm really excited for everybody to get to meet Jen in a little more detail, even if you did join us for our kickoff event. You'll get to find out a lot more about her. And here is how our evening is going to lay out. So I've got this very brief little welcome presentation. Should just be about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to take us through a very brief sort of refresher on what supportive tech is in terms of the way DODD views it. After that, we're going to get to probably what most of you are more interested in. And that is Jen's going to sort of tell her story and the role that technology's played in it. And then we're going to have a tech spotlight that she's calling Automated Life. So what we're going to end up getting to do is see some video clips and some photos of some different things that Jen uses in her life to help her be more independent, and even some things that she made, which is pretty awesome. And then we're going to reserve, like I said, about the last half of the program here for a Q&A with Jen. And that's going to be an opportunity. This is really intended specifically for individuals and families to be able to come on. We'll promote you to become a panelist, and you can ask Jen a question about her life or any of the things that you see, or if there's just a question you have about technology and how it might affect your life or the life of someone in your family. That is perfectly fine for you to ask too, and we'll do our best to field those. So that should be really fun. All right, we're going to briefly just cover a couple of program details here before we move on. So this was just a schedule of the events that we've had so far. So we had our kickoff event on the 11th, and then an introduction to Brad Whitmoyer on the 16th. So we've got this event that we're holding right now, where we're introducing Jen. And then in about 3 weeks, on April 20th at 6 p.m., you're going to get a chance to meet our last new tech ambassador to our program, Renee Wood. Okay. And we are working hard to schedule our first in-person event. We're talking to folks around the state about where we might be able to do that. So although we don't have an actual booking and a date and a time yet, you can always check our new events calendar at ohiotechambassadors.org/events. Just in case anyone did see that page in the last day or two, I heard that for a little bit the events were not appearing. I think we got that fixed today. So, all right, then one more little program detail. We're really excited about this new feature at our website here, because we want you to know we're really here for you. Individuals and families are the heart of what we're doing here. We want to encourage folks to use technology. And so that's one of the reasons why we're scheduling plenty of time for Q&A in our events. We would absolutely love to attend advocacy meetings, SSA staff meetings, conferences. It could be provider meetings. It could be lots and lots of things. There are other organizations kind of in our universe where you might like to have a tech ambassador attend and talk about their lives and technology. The other way that this could work is if we have individuals and families who are considering technology and maybe have questions, and maybe you don't feel like an event a public event like this is where you want to ask those questions. And you'd like a private meeting with one or more tech ambassadors. We want to encourage you to do that. And the way to do that is at our website. So you can go to ohiotechambassadors.org/request, and there's a simple form there that just asks for a date and a time and some details about whether it's an event or just a meeting that you like, and then you can choose one or more tech ambassadors that you'd like to have join you. So we just ask you to provide as much detailed information as you can. All right. Next segment, supportive tech refresher. So this is kind of the classroom section of our program. I'll share that with you. Okay. So many of you may know these things, but just if you haven't heard or thought about these in a while, or maybe if we do have folks who are not familiar with the term supportive technology, according to DoDD, this is made up of two different things: assistive technology, right? And that is equipment. We call it equipment that assists a person with a developmental disability in any kind of an activity. So that could include special adaptive devices that are made specifically for people with certain types of physical disabilities: induction stoves, medication dispensers, med alert devices. And of course, those last two would include people even without physical disabilities. It could be mainstream consumer devices. We're going to get a look at one or more of those tonight. Things like digital assistants, Alexa, Google. It could be lights or doorbell cameras or thermostats or door locks. But it really doesn't have to include anything electronic at all. It could be an adaptive fork or a rail in a bathroom or even a pillow. And we are definitely going to get a look at a couple of those examples today too. So we call all those things equipment. But the other half of supported technology is remote support. So this is a personal service that's delivered over two-way audio or video, and usually both, right? Many of us are familiar with FaceTime or two-way video on a variety of platforms these days. And what's important about this is folks who are delivering this personal support are aware of that individual's ISP. And what they like and what they don't like and what helps them. Okay. And in addition to the two-way video, it often does include equipment necessary for that remote staff to make sure that the person in the home is safe. So that could be things like cameras or sensors, water sensors, motion sensors, security systems, etc. Whatever helps that person, be safe in the home. All right. Is everybody ready to meet Jen? I'm really, really happy to introduce Jen. I think you're going to be, interested in what she has to share with us tonight. And without any further ado, I'm just going to hand it over. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you, George.
Oops, you're muted again.
Try that again. Hi, everybody. Thank you, George. It's nice to get to be here with all of you this evening. For lack of better terminology, we're going to go with welcome to my birthday party, because in actuality, I should have been born last week. Instead, my birthday was in December. Very interesting origins led to a very interesting life. And the moral of my story is that I would not be much of anywhere without technology. I think about technology very broadly because it's an integral part of my day-to-day life. From the day I was born to the day that I die, technology will be in that story. Whether or not it's recognized as, super high tech like a computer, or something super low fidelity like a way to hold my fork. So for me, again, every day of my life. So starting out, it was very much that manual technology kept me alive until I could be life flighted to a bigger hospital. And then from there, technology enabled me to be able to walk from a medical standpoint because I had significant surgeries when I was a child from a biotech standpoint. And so from there, it really became not a background piece of my life, but something that I thought about every day. Because I come from rural Ohio, and I came from a community where, at least within my family structure, disability was not exactly celebrated. It was not something that we were going to have a cake and throw a party about. It was more something to minimize, to figure out how can we pretend like this isn't a thing, or how can we pretend like this isn't a problem. And so that's where technology really came into play in my life, because I realized early on that the world around me was not accommodating for me. So maybe I was going to have to adjust to accommodate for the world that I was living in. And so early on, that was very, very simple fixes to just trying to problem solve all the time of, I want to be able to go live a very full and fulfilling life. How do I do that if there are all these barriers around me? And so it was simple things like, I didn't learn how to tie my shoes because my dexterity was so poor until I was in like 4th grade. So I got Velcro shoes instead. If my high school did not suit my wheelchair very well when I had surgery my freshman year of high school, it became, okay, how can I pad this wheelchair better or do something slightly different with it so it makes it easier to get through this rough terrain? My very first big story of where using something assistive came into play was I was in my high school marching band, and I wanted to play a giant xylophone called a marimba. And I, at that point, had undiagnosed carpal tunnel and couldn't use a significant portion of my left hand. So my section leader and I, we came up with a duct tape glove that would hold my hand closed and would allow me to use the mallet. That was really the start of my building stuff for myself story, which ultimately led me down a path of becoming a biomedical engineer. So fast forward several years, that pathway kept going, that I was still trying to find creative solutions to as many problems as I could. To further contextualize, up until about this year, all of these acronyms that we're talking about, DODD, SSA, I had absolutely no idea what they meant, because prior to 2021, I was not connected in any fashion to any kind of DD services. That was not a pathway that my family wanted to pursue. And then I became very busy just trying to survive. And so it's just been recently that I've been starting to piece that picture together for myself. But it became slightly more urgent when I decided to go to college, because I walked into college having absolutely no idea how I was going to pull this off. And technology, once again, was the thing that saved it and solved it and fixed it for me. I really like problem solving, so I went the engineering route, but I didn't see myself represented much in my classes. And I was doing a lot of troubleshooting to a lot of things that the rest of my classmates weren't really dealing with. of not only, how do I do my homework, but also how do I get in the classroom to learn the thing to do my homework. And there were plenty of tough times. There was a semester that I only drank liquids because that was how not great I was functioning. But I learned to make it work. And the thing that really made it work was technology. It was things like my shoulder is dislocated right now. I'm going to use a coat hanger to get the door open, to my perpetual game that I now play of making holders for my silverware out of easily recyclable items that are readily available. It's kind of become a game where every time I go somewhere, I create a new handle to see what interesting things I can now build one out of. In 2016, I got very sick on top of my cerebral palsy diagnosis and my other secondary conditions that I have from having cerebral palsy. And it turns out that I have a secondary disorder on top of it, but I didn't find that out for about 7 years. So it became very urgent that I solve a lot of the day-to-day problems in my life that I had been avoiding. So after spending 5 weeks in the hospital, I went back to school 2 weeks later. And I went back knowing that I didn't even know how I was going to open my door. So I had to get rid of my door locks and get ones that were easier to operate. And so that's how my life transitioned into starting to figure out, how do I automate every possible thing that I can? How can I make it so that every second that I'm able to save of my personal private life, that I now have extra energy to go put forward to my more public professional life? How can I give myself that best quality of life with as little inconvenience to myself and to others as I possibly can have? And so that led me to a slew of different things, where I think if I grand total the various devices that I have, it's something like 75 or more, because like every second of every day, I'm always looking for something new to solve it from. So it's things like having shoehorns and button hooks, to having a nearly 6-foot computer. Very, very simple things, some of which are built, to very complicated things, some of which I'm also building, because I really took on becoming a biomedical engineer because I wanted to not only help myself, but help the broader community. So I actually have a few assistive technology projects myself that are currently under development and currently patent pending, which is kind of exciting, things I never thought I'd say about my life, because my parents were told that they should baptize me the day I was born, that I wasn't going to walk, talk, or be anything. And for me, I love defying that, but I love creating things that defy that even more, and specifically helping other people within the community finding those things that help them defy that label and that expectation to have the best life that we all can possibly have. I'm going to wrap this up because I would much rather get to talk to all of you specifically, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions, but thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. We appreciate that. And we are in just a minute going to get to seeing some of the technologies that Jen uses. Real quick before we move on to that segment, I'm going to ask our first poll question, which has to do with event segments. So as you can tell, we try to break our events up into little sections. And so what we're interested in knowing from all of you is, which of these types of segments are you most interested in seeing? So that could be educational material on remote supports, like the short refresher we did, live technology demonstrations. It could be pre-recorded technology demonstrations, personal stories, like the one that Jen just told us, question and answer time, or maybe you thought of some other sort of segment that we didn't list there. So we'll give you just another minute to answer those questions. And as I said before, we really, really appreciate everybody's input. This is what informs the type of content that we put together for you all. So thank you very much. And our next segment is going to be our Tech Spotlight. So I got the great pleasure of visiting Jen at her home and getting a look at one of the places at OSU where she spent an awful lot of time as a student. And so I've got some short videos that we're going to show, and then we're going to give Jen an opportunity. And feel free, Jen, by the way, if at any point, during these short videos, you want me to pause, you got something that you want to say in the middle, you can let me know. But if not, we'll just take a second after each video airs. So here's the first one, pretty short one. I just thought this was super neat.
Flaming white collar.
Here's White Collar Season 5, Episode 12.
Alexa, play.
Well, I think it has something to do with pitting a mango. Never used it. Do you think Neil would want it?
I don't know, but I do know that he doesn't want to handle her anymore.
That's
Neil
awesome.
asked me to
Alexa.
recommend.
Stop.
All right. I'd seen those on TV, but never in person. So, whoops, is it playing again? There we go. Anything you want to add to that, Jen?
So that one is actually the most recent addition to my technical wheelhouse. I actually bought that one specifically because I wanted a cost-effective way to also be able to turn all of my lights on and off. And the options for that were to either buy a hub or to buy a new Alexa. So I was also able to get Alexa-enabled light switches for about $5 each. And they all run through that Echo Show. What we demonstrated in the video is that if you're talking to Alexa, it will actually follow you around, which is nifty.
And maybe slightly disquieting in some ways too.
Well, your options there are that you're either specifically saying Alexa and it follows you, or you're doing something like playing a video when it tracks so you can keep watching the video as you move.
Yeah.
So it doesn't follow you all the time.
Okay, that's true. Let's see if I can get this video to play here. By the way, I'm having a little trouble. I'll just mention while I'm working on this that all of these videos will be posted, these short videos. You may know we record all of the events that we hold like this one. So the full event, an hour or more, will be played on or will be posted to YouTube, but we'll also post these short ones. These are often a lot more digestible for folks and easier for folks to listen to. Let me try a different app here and see if I can get this working. Okay. Maybe I was just using the wrong app. All right, here we go. Second video.
I have one of these on my bed and one of these out here because, again, temperature and I are not friends. But basically what it does is it's a heater cooler by air. And eventually the company is supposed to be putting these on Alexa and Google and whatnot. But at the moment they are on, they are on either a smartphone app or I do have a remote. For me, if I can have something, again, I try to consolidate into one device or as few devices as I possibly can. So if there's an app that I can remote control it by, instead of having a remote itself and needing like 17 remotes, I
Yep.
do the phone version. But so for this, like I can pick what temperature do I want it to be.
Okay.
And so let's say I wanted this super hot. This is gonna kick on, and it's just heated air or cooled air. And then if you have a blanket on top of this, it really just creates like an air bubble.
Okay. So would it be like if you kind of had a blanket around you and you just threw one end over that, then you kind of get the air inside of it?
Go and feel it.
Yeah. Okay. That's warming up.
So it's basically like a super fancy version of a heated blanket, but without a lot of the danger.
All right. Anything you want to add to that, Jen?
So if anyone is interested in something like that, that particular item is called a bed jet. For me, where that's really useful is that as part of my ongoing health problems, my body temperature doesn't regulate well anymore. So I have everything from the bed heater that you've just seen to a heated vest that I'll throw on if I'm too cold. Because for me, if I get too hot or too cold, like I did Sunday night, I end up spending the night by myself on the floor, which is never fun. So products like this are super handy if you equally have temperature regulation issues.
Okay. Great. Let's see. What do we have next here? Oh, I thought this was interesting. Yes, I like it. That's great.
So yes, there is a stylus to this, but that would defeat the purpose for me because I can't hold it.
Right.
And so like that's actually how I ended up with this, because I have this of all different sizes. Like I have a little one that goes places with me, but this is my big one for when I'm brainstorming up stuff, and I can send you some really cool pictures of some of the stuff I did for my dog.
Yeah.
I designed it on here and then took the sketches where I needed to take them.
So that you can just save those.
Well, so I just take a picture.
Oh, okay. Yep. Great.
Yeah, it's by this company called Blackboard, and it's basically like a grown-up Etch-a-Sketch. So yeah, this is the very low fidelity. I just want to sketch something out. I write my to-do list here for my assistant, stuff like that. These are actually pretty lightweight. It's about 20 pounds.
That's so light.
Yeah.
For something that size.
But so they make smaller ones that are about yay big.
Okay.
Those ones are good if you're like writing a single thing down, because like the smaller size means you gotta scribble a bit more.
Right.
So I definitely love this one. If I could, I almost want to put this on a drafting stand where I could tilt the angle.
Yeah.
But I haven't found. What I would love to do with this is find a drafting stand that would fit on my kitchen counter. You know that massive counter behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to put it there and be able to sit on my counter and work with this.
Yeah.
I don't love the up and down.
Right.
But it's the right size for me.
Yeah.
In terms of what I can do with my hand, because you can even use other parts of your body.
Nice.
So like there have been days where I'm like, I have my fist right now, or like my hands are clenched, but I know my ring will work. So angle that.
Oh, and it doesn't scratch it or anything. That actually sounds like the old chalkboard.
I mean, it's not the world's best, but like on bad days, it works.
That's what it's about, right? It's about finding a way to make things work.
Exactly.
Anything you want to add to that?
So that might actually be my single most favorite thing that I own. I wish that it had existed or I found it earlier in my story, because I've always struggled with limited dexterity. But as I've been getting older with more complicated health, I started with basically no dexterity in life, where like I had to learn it. I went through hundreds of hours of PT and OT. My mom cried when I couldn't put Cheerios on string. But as I spent all those hours, it was a skill that I learned. Whereas when I got really sick in 2016, that wiped a lot of my dexterity away. So on a typical good day, I have good use of my thumbs and my index fingers. That does not bode well for a lot of things in life, because people get really confused when you walk in and you're like, "Hi, I need you to write that down for me because I can tell you what to write, but I can't really do it for myself anymore." It took me on this very big journey of trying to find a way to write for myself. That I think I've tried every writing product that's been made between 2016 and 2019, I believe. And when I say been made, I mean within the United States, not everywhere. But I probably have 3 dozen different writing things, and that one by far and away is my favorite because it's so easy. And they make it in so many different sizes. The company is called Boogie Board.
We might have had a little hesitation in the audio. What's the name of the company?
The company is called Boogie Board.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. I think in the interest of time, Jen, what we may want to do here is just move to showing a couple of the photos and letting you talk about those.
Sure.
Let's see. Let's share that. So this is what you mentioned a little while ago, but tell our viewers about that.
Yeah, so this is my running game of putting my engineering degree to use, that finding different ways to hold silverware if I don't have something fancier with me to do so. So the photo on the left is I went out to dinner for my dad's birthday and I created a handle out of a napkin, a rubber band, and the fork. And then the photo on your right is I went to an event sponsored by the Nicehanger Center here in Columbus. And what I came up with that day was using an empty pop can with a pop tab.
Yeah, and I love the explanation you gave about why you prefer to do this rather than maybe having your own things and bringing them with you. You may just want to.
Yeah, I do have a couple pre-made solutions for silverware. But the thing of that is like, okay, I have this fancy silverware, and there's a cool one called Dining with Dignity, where it's loops that go on your fingers. But with that, like, okay, we've gone out to a nice meal, we've eaten, and now I get to carry around dirty silverware for the rest of the night. Whereas if I use something instead that's reusable, I can just throw it away and make something new the next time I'm eating.
Yeah. And I got the impression you kind of had fun with that too.
Yeah.
All right, here's the next one.
So next we have, this is the only one of this kind that I have, but it's a fancier light switch. I'm sorry, give me one moment. As my life runs on assistive technology, my feeding tube pump has decided it wants to beep. So one moment, please.
Okay. So we did have one more video that we didn't get to show here, but like I said earlier, we'll post that to YouTube so you can watch it.
All right, thank you. Technology is great when it works, right?
Absolutely.
So this is the fanciest of my light switches, that I only have one because it would be cost prohibitive to have a whole house hold of them. But it is something that I like as a single device, because it has a built-in Alexa, a built-in screen, and you're able to interface with other devices. So this is the light switch in my bedroom. I like light switches that you have multiple ways of being able to turn on and off your lights. So I can gesture control this, but I can also talk to it to turn the light on and off. If you had multiple of these, you could actually use them as an intercom system. The company here is called Brilliant.
Feature I loved about that was that you could actually dim the lights with the screen there just by touching it. Thought that was super neat.
Yes, it's nifty that you don't need to have specific light bulbs to be able to dim. You can just
Right.
dim on that specific device.
How about this one?
This is my low fidelity answer to I can't always get up. I have a lot of bed rails and other things, and those are nice for your beds, but when you're on the go and you're moving around and you still need a way to balance yourself up, how are you going to do that? For me, it means that I carry this around, and it's meant to be a suction cup rail to put in your shower. But at the moment on this photo, it's clipped to my kitchen counter so I can get off my bar stools.
Here you go. Instant handle. All right. This was I was a little sad about this, but I'm gonna let you tell everyone about this device.
Yes, so I was actually this is one of my favorites that I really wanted to show George yesterday. But it is a plotter that can be controlled from your phone or another device. And what that basically means is a plotter is a device that will move a pen or a laser or something else back and forth to the location of your choosing. So this originally was on a glass whiteboard that had little feet, and it's like a robot that moves your pen around. So when I want to leave myself little notes, I can go to my phone, I can scribble down what I want to write, and it writes it across the screen. And the interesting thing is multiple people can connect into this, so you can actually play tic-tac-toe. This is considered an open source project. So all of the plans and the files for this are out there on the web. You can 3D the parts yourselves. What we're all chuckling at is, unfortunately, I took this to do a repair on it, and when I brought it home and put it back together, the glass shattered yesterday. So it ended up in about 200 pieces, and now I need to order some new glass.
Oh no. Yeah, that's what you're seeing, the little green patch there on the counter is some of the shattered glass.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of that is 3D printed as well as
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah, it shattered about 15 minutes before George showed up to take these videos.
So one day I'll get to see when you put it back together.
Yes, if anyone wants to check this particularly out, it's made by a UK company called JJ Robots.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. It's about 20 till. I'm going to go ahead and stop this share. And we at least want to make sure that we give folks time, if you want to come on the screen and do some Q&A with Jen, or as we mentioned before, even just ask a question that might pertain to your own family or life. And I've still got that slideshow back there. We may circle back if we don't get a lot of questions. But as we said in the Zoom orientation, if you have a question, either for Jen or about your own life you want to ask, you just click the raise hand button at the bottom there, and we'll promote you to become a panelist. You can turn your camera and your microphone on, and you can ask that question live. Oh, we have a question in the Q&A here that I'll just field for Jen. You can answer this one. Does your handle work well on a variety of surfaces?
So specifically for that particular handle that I'm using, it works well on non-porous surfaces. So it works well on my kitchen counter, obviously in my shower, very solid tabletops. For more porous surfaces though, that's where I bring out the duct tape. I'm just gonna give that some extra oomph. And I might come up with a few other solutions if it's a surface that isn't sticking well to.
I love it. Duct tape as assistive technology, for sure. All right. Anyone have other questions for Jen? Feel free to type them in the Q&A if you prefer that. If you don't want to come on the screen, that's okay too. All right, while we're waiting for those, I'm going to do our second poll question for everybody. So this question has to do with other activities that our program does at Ohio Tech Ambassadors aside from events like this. So what's the most important thing Ohio Tech Ambassadors can do outside of these events? Meet with individuals and families, speak at advocacy group meetings, speak at conferences, speak at staff meetings for county boards, COGS, or other organizations, or other. Okay, we'll give you just a minute. And I've got a question in the Q&A here. And it looks like maybe we only got a part of the question in. Feel free. This is Emmeline. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And she's asking Jen if you went through depression at all.
Sure. I'm going to answer that question kind of broadly. By all means, if you had some more context to that question, feel free to throw it up. But yes, to be honest, there have absolutely been chapters in my story that were incredibly depressing and incredibly difficult. I use college as my reference point quite a bit because it's such a significant chapter in my life and such a difficult one. Even before I got really sick in 2016, I actually developed previous health problems to that. So circa 2015 was not a very good year. I walked into college literally with 2 or 3 health problems, cerebral palsy being the most significant one. When I graduated, I rolled out with 15 health problems. That's a lot to handle. And I watched a family member go through significant depression when I was younger. And so I swore that would never be me. So I've always really tried really hard to have a good handle on the mental health of just like how you might go to the gym. I equally, for myself personally, find it important to go to therapy, that I talk through my challenges because there are a lot of them. I've learned over time, the more I talk about my life, the more I realize, like when I'm just in a friend group with the rest of my peers, that my day-to-day life is strange. Like it's unusual compared to some of my professional peers that don't have disability or accessibility challenges. They might be like, oh yeah, I went to the park this weekend. And I'm like, oh yeah, I had a nurse poke me with needles this weekend. Like, even though that's a typical day for me, it's not a typical day for everyone else. And so sometimes that can be really depressing to kind of feel like you're living a life that's different from some of the communities that you're a part of. So I definitely have struggled with my mental health at times, but I would like to say from my standpoint that it definitely gets better, because I've definitely seen the reverse of like, this feels like rock bottom. Where are we going from here? Because that was certainly my life in that 2015, 2016 period of, I almost got thrown out of my major for being so far behind my classmates because I could no longer hold my pencil to do my classwork. That was incredibly painful and incredibly difficult. And so, yes, absolutely. Now that I'm on the other side of it, if depression is something that you're working your way through, I would love to be the first one to tell you that it gets better.
That's great. Really appreciate that, Jen. And Emma, type to follow up to just say, I'm sorry, Jen, I'm here with you. I was depressed and anxious as well. So,
well, Emmeline, I really appreciate your openness. If that's ever something that you want someone to talk to you about, please feel free to. I'm happy to be a bit of a.
Awesome. All right, so we've got we've got someone you might recognize with a hand up. We're going to promote this person to panelist so that he can ask his question to everyone. Welcome. Let's see. There's Nathan Turner.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Hi.
So I have two questions for Jen. Just broadly, would you mind talking about sort of your vision for your biomedical engineering degree and what you plan to do? And then secondly, I'm interested to hear more about how you communicate through writing, since you can't do it physically as well. And I can relate to some of that experience, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Okay, Nathan, I might have missed a tiny bit of the end of your question.
No, I apologize. No, I was just saying, I can relate to your experiences about not being able to write physically, and I was wanting you to talk more about your experiences on using technology to help you do that.
Oh, yes, I would be happy to discuss that. I'm sorry, remind me one more time, what was the first part of your question?
So if you could talk more broadly about what your vision is for how you want to use your biomedical degree.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll start there. So long-term picture, I actually really want to be a complex care physician. But I ended up in a really interesting pivot because I recognized after going through a 7-year odyssey to get my undergraduate biomedical engineering degree, that first off, I'm a little burnt out on school for the moment. And second off, I know that if I'm ever going to go back into a classroom setting, I need to have better tools than I currently have. Because I was actually just talking to someone about this earlier this morning, that I need to figure out the tools on day 0, not on day 467, the way that I did in my undergrad. I had already started my undergrad and then retroactively trying to figure out how to make it all work. For something like medical school, that's not going to work. And I don't want to go into that situation without some degree of competence that I could actually make it work. So that took me into a pivot of, okay, if I don't make it to medical school, what would I be happy doing? And for me, the answer was biomedical engineering. And so with that, I have taken several twists on where I thought I would take this, but the punchline for me ended up being that I accidentally started a company in college. In 2016, when I was trying to solve all these problems that I was living through and not really getting support from a lot of places, I kind of decided that I had to step up and figure it out, because if no one was going to help me figure it out, it still had to get figured out. Like, where was I going to end up? Living on my parents' couch? That wasn't the life that I wanted. So I started trying to iterate on the projects and the problems that I was having. And I must have called every disability organization this side of the Mississippi, and I got not much of anywhere because people got really confused when I was talking about how I could do calculus, but couldn't tie my shoes or get off the floor when I fell down, or couldn't move below my neck at the moment. Like, the picture of what people perceived that I was and what I was in reality didn't match, and people were pretty confused. So in all of that, in recognizing that I had to start figuring out how to solve the problems, somehow that turned into a bunch of projects. And I tried to hand off these projects to other people of like, I don't really want to do this. Like, can you create the solution? I've already sketched it all out for you. And people are like, no, like, we want to see you do this. So that's kind of what ended up happening, where I ended up gathering support and resources and funding for the projects that I was trying to create for myself. And so that kind of is where my biomedical engineering career is going. I'm trying to build an accessibility engineering firm where you come in almost like fashion, where fashion has different houses, right? Everyone has a different brand that they like. That I think accessibility should be the same way of like, this is accessibility according to Jen Schlegel. So to touch on your questions, although I definitely would like to get back to my BME roots, a bit more of, I was trained to do cell and tissue engineering, and I would like to touch that again in the future at some point. As for writing, I wish I had a very linear, concise answer for you. For me, it's honestly just been a boatload of troubleshooting, because I tried so many different things that didn't work for me because they weren't built for me, right? So that's where I really got started on building my own solutions. The first project that I ever pitched was a writing device that goes on your finger, that I found out, it seemed super simple at the time, but I found out as I went into the design process for that actually what I designed, the technology for it doesn't exist yet. So that's something to work on again in the future. But I definitely recommend trying different solutions and seeing what works for you. Speech to text is a really popular solution. For me personally, as I was a STEM student with a lot of drawing, it didn't work. So it ended up actually that for me to graduate, my getting funding for my company allowed me to pay for a scribe for me to be able to end up graduating. And that led me to one of my current projects where, Nathan, I feel the struggle of not being able to write for yourself so deeply that I'm actually designing a software for it, of using simple gestures, no dragging, no dropping, no scrolling, almost like a very accessible, very simple, iPad-friendly touchscreen interface. And I'm actually working on that right now as part of a fellowship with Ohio State University. And if anyone is interested in this, I would love to talk to you further, because having the community co-design it with me is really important to me.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. If you ever need a beta tester, you can call me.
Oh, Nathan, I'm definitely going to call you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So we've got one question in the Q&A, and then we got someone who wants to come on here. Hopefully we'll have time to get to both of these. So the first question is from Sarah. She says, I appreciate you sharing so much. Which piece of technology impacts your life the most?
Oh, Sarah, this is actually really easy for me. I don't even have to think about it, that this is the single most important device in my life. I don't actually have any idea where I'd be without it, genuinely. Like, that's not an over exaggeration, because I run my entire life through my cell phone. I am one of those massive cell phone super users. So despite the fact that my fingers don't work very well, my thumb and my index fingers to some extent do. So I am probably the fastest texter you will ever see. I run my lights and my devices and everything that I try to automate through my phone. I do my emails and to-do lists and web browsing and everything that's possibly connected to technology that you can run through a cell phone, I do. It is my lifeline when I am struggling and having a health emergency that, like, I need help right now, that enables me to call other people to come help me, because I live alone and don't have any sort of assistance. It really is a lifesaver. I know for me, if things like cell phones didn't exist, I would not have been able to go to college or anywhere other than my parents' couch.
That totally makes sense. All right, so it looks like Emmeline would like to come on and ask a question live. So I am promoting her to become a panelist. We'll give her just a second to connect in and turn on a mic and a camera. Hello, welcome.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Great.
So I wanted to tell you, Jen, that I am working with Ollie Metforol. He does these amazing things. He set me up with a camera behind me right here. They are webcams, so he can watch me while I'm cooking or doing stuff around in the kitchen, or if I am needing to do something, they can just call me in through this thing right here, it's called a portal, so they can call me and check in with me and then tell me to take my medication and stuff like that. They also set up a fire detector smoke alarms throughout my house. Like there's one by my basement, there's one upstairs, and it can like turn on to remind me that there's stuff going on in the house.
That's
And
great.
there is one more thing. He actually set me up with a garage door opener, and they can watch who is like coming in and out. And
Mhm.
I have a camera outside so they can see who is walking in the backyard. So I know that I know who's in the backyard at that moment.
That's great. That sounds like a lot of stuff that helps you probably feel safe, right? Remote support equipment, right?
Yes, definitely. And he's a really nice guy as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ali-
we have some one of our tech ambassadors who knows Ali very well, Marcy.
Oh
So-
yes, I know Marcy.
I bet you do. All right, Evelyn. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's see. We probably have time for one more. This might be someone else that we know. Who could this be?
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Tim.
That is
I wanted
Tanner. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, George. I wanted to know with the engineering, like degree you have, with getting the company started, how did that, like, how did you get it started exactly?
So I am sighing at this a little bit because it's actually a little more complicated than I would like it to be from the standpoint of I have been told that I'm doing a little bit of pioneering because there isn't a great current legal structure for me as a disabled business owner to own my company the way that it's structured and also still potentially be eligible for various DD supports. I don't want to go off on a soapbox, but it's a little bit of a pain that sometimes my company resources count against my ability to get personal resources, which gets fairly painful because my company at the moment is all pre-revenue. I don't have a first customer yet, so I'm not taking a salary from it, but the rate income into my company is my personal income, which then counts against a bunch of eligibility things. The process of actually setting up a company here in the state of Ohio itself is pretty simple. To start an LLC, it's a series of simple paperwork, plus somewhere between a $99 and $129 fee. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Tanner. We appreciate that question.
Yeah.
And we got one more that came in over the Q&A. Maybe we can sneak this in right before it turns 7. And a little bit more of a request almost than a question. Comes from Joni, who says, please consider designing a power chair where the power is controlled by the person pushing it. For those of us who care for people who can't control a chair themselves. So as caregivers age, she says, we can no longer push wheelchairs long distance, but we still want to travel and provide experiences for the people we love and care for. That's a fascinating request.
So I think that's a very good request. I have a few things to say about it. That it ties into one of the things I'm actively working on. I have very strong opinions on a lot of the things that I think are wrong with the design of a wheelchair as a wheelchair roller user myself. So yes, it's on my big wish list for someday to completely redesign a wheelchair from the ground up. But for the moment, for myself, I had sort of similar issues to this from a slightly different angle of I couldn't find a device that really suited that I like to walk and then I also like to roll when I get too tired. So I took it upon myself to modify the device that I own myself. And so I'm equally thinking through how I have that project currently and how it could completely be adapted for what you're talking about here, where instead of the power being controlled by the joystick that I've DIY'd myself for mine, that I could flip that around for exactly someone who is pushing it for someone who can't push it for themselves. I don't know if we have time, George, but if you want to play the video of my rollator that I've adapted being driven, I could totally see where the joystick could be turned for someone pushing the chair to be able to drive it instead.
You know, I don't know if I have that local here. Hold on, let me just check and see if I do. There's
To further contextualize in case we can't get this video up quickly, I use a rollator, which is a cross between a walker, a wheelchair, and I kind of special ordered mine from another country. But what frustrated me is like, it's great for when someone needs to push me around. It's great for when I'm walking myself. But when I get tired and I want to drive myself, there's no option for that. So I was spending multiple hours having to go home and then take paratransit back to where I needed to be. That didn't seem like a feasible option. So for about $150, I designed a solution for my rollator that uses a child motor that I can use a joystick to drive it. But because I get to pick where it goes on my rollator, that's where I think it could be adapted for your use case of fitting on the back of a standard wheelchair.
okay. Well, I'll say this: it's 7:02, so we've reached the official end of our hour. If we do continue to get questions, I mean, I think we can probably hang around for a few more minutes. So anyone that's got a scheduling conflict and you need to go, I'll just say an official thank you so much for coming and participating. I'll make sure that we thank our interpreters who always do such a great job for us. And biggest thanks of all to Jen for hosting, for sharing all of the fun devices, and really just for being vulnerable and sharing the things that are going on in your life with everyone today. All right.
I'm happy to do it. For some of these questions that I see coming in right now, I do have social media. Facebook, it's just my name. Instagram, it's just.keep.rolling. Joni, to answer your question about where I specifically ordered my personal rollator from, I will warn you, it was definitely an investment that I made in myself because it was not in the price range that insurance was going to cover. But the company is called Rolls, ROLLZ. And the model that I specifically have is a Rolls Motion.
And you know what? To me, this sounds like the perfect opportunity for a consultation. So Joni, if you guys want to go to ohiotechambassadors.org/request, just type some information in there, and Jen would be happy to meet individually with you to talk over this in some more detail. All right. Before I give an official wave goodbye, any more questions or comments from any of our attendees today? All right. Well, again, I'm just going to repeat the thank you. We've had a great time here, and hopefully you have too. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone on April 20th when we get to meet Renee Wood. Bye, everyone.